I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Okay, well, I was going to open with the question right off the bat here. 1 Peter is what we're going into now. And according to these passages, 1 Peter 1 and 1, we're going to look at who the author is. So according to 1 Peter 1 and 1, Steffi, do you want to read that, please?
Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who are elect, exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia.
Bithynia. Yeah, okay. So according to that, then, who's the writer? Peter. Right, Steffi. I was waiting for Gord to say his line there. He said who it is. It's Peter, right. And then chapter 5 and verse 1. Henry, I'll give that to you.
The elders who are among you I exhort. I, who am a fellow elder and the witness of the suffering of Christ, also a partaker of the glory that will be revealed.
Okay. Revealed. Okay. Okay, so according to this passage, the writer refers to something about himself. What is that?
He's an elder.
The which?
He's an elder.
Okay, yeah. And we know Peter was. Jeff?
He witnessed the cross.
Right. He witnessed the sufferings of Christ. Okay, and it's interesting there what he says at the end of that verse, and also a partaker of the glory that will be revealed. What do you think of that? Can you think of something that happened with Peter?
The day of Pentecost.
The which word?
The day of Pentecost.
Okay, well, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a point. Yeah, I was thinking before that.
Transfiguration on the mountain.
Right, Jeff. Yeah, he witnessed, didn't he? The changing of Christ, and also I thought maybe of our Christian walk, of our daily life, of the blessings that we think of, the blessings that God has given to us. The joy that we walk in, all our trust and our faith. So, undoubtedly, though, fact of earlier Peter has spoke of himself as an elder, and the fact that yes, Luke records that Peter witnessed the sufferings of Christ, and so. Chapter 5, we're still there, verses 12 and 13. 12 and 13. Veronica, do you want to come up and read those? Chapter 5, verses 12 and 13.
Final greetings. With the help of Silas, whom I regard as a faithful brother, I have written to you briefly, encouraging you and testifying that this is the true grace of God. Stand fast in it. She who is in Babylon, chosen together with you, send you her greetings, and so does my son Mark.
Okay, what lends some evidence there in those verses towards Peter being the author. Another name is what we're after. The which word? Whose name is in there also?
Sylvanus.
Um,
Sylvanus.
yeah, okay. I didn't think of him. Yeah. I was thinking more of Mark, Peter's acquaintance.
Yeah, 13. That was the other verse.
Right. I thought of Acts 12, verses 11 and 12. Acts 11 and 12. At that very moment, I must put down the wrong.
Mark is at 13.
Maybe it's Acts 12 and verses 11 and 12. Oh, okay, right, verse 12. And so when he had considered this, this was speaking of Peter, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark. So, again, just that mention of the acquaintances that he has had with Mark lends to Peter being the author. And I thought for an introduction for Peter, the Apostle Peter to many is as well known as Judas for his betrayal of Christ. And I thought, people love to dwell on others when they fall. That's a weakness. And they fail sometimes to get past one's failures and see the end results. Okay? They fail to learn the lessons, both good and bad, that have come through falling. And that's a shame. Gord?
Well, the difference between Peter and Judas is Peter repented.
Right.
He realized after the cock crowed that what he had did, Jesus told him that he would do, and he wept bitterly.
Yeah.
That hit him really, really hard.
Oh, yes.
Whereas Judas hung himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Peter didn't end his life, he repented.
Right.
Made a change.
Right. That's right. He understood and knew God's promises, didn't he? But I thought of Luke 22, verses 31 to 32. And here's what Jesus says to Peter. And this goes along with the thought of some that continue to not get past others' failures. But Jesus says to Peter, he says, Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. Little did Peter know, I believe, at this time, how he would eventually be used by God, to strengthen not only believers of his own generation, but believers of all generations to come. And through his 2 inspired epistles that he was to write, Peter does stand out with some of our New Testament heroes. I think of Paul. Paul was known as an apostle of faith. Apostle John is known as an apostle of love. And Peter is known as the apostle of hope. That's what we're going to see in the beginning of our study. And he's one of the most interesting characters of the New Testament. And it supplies us with more personal information of Peter than it does of any of the other apostles of Christ. And Peter's name was Simon, which was a common Greek name at that time. and the Hebrew equivalent of that name, which is Simeon, and his father's name was John or Jonas. And in John 1 and verse 42, Jesus gives Simon a new name here. And it prophetically points to his future use in the Christian circle. If we just skip back there, John 1 and verse 42, and he brought him to Jesus. Okay, this is Andrew bringing Peter to Jesus. Now, when Jesus looked at him, he said, "You are Simon, the son of Jonah. You shall be called Cephas," which is translated a stone. And there's really no other Peter reference to in the New Testament except Peter here. And another thing to make note of, as I just said, he had one brother whose name was Andrew, and his family hometown, I put on this little map, was Bethesda of Galilee, and it was located on the north side of the Sea of Tiberias, or the Sea of Galilee. And Luke tells us that the two brothers were partners in the fishing industry with James and John, who were also living on the shores of Galilee in a town of Capernaum. And I wanted us to look at Matthew 4, 18 and 22, but I think I'll leave that because we won't get through it. But just some points there of when Jesus came across. Peter and Andrew, James and John had already heard Christ's teachings now for about a year. You know, Jesus has come up to the shores of Galilee, and he's confronted Peter and Andrew and James and John. And I'll leave that till that's how we'll open next week. We'll just look at that time.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to